watching The Producer's Room, a streaming web series featuring the creators behind the hit songs of today's music industry. Songwriters, music producers, and artists discuss their creative process as well as examining current issues and technologies in today's rapidly changing music business. Your host is producer, songwriter, and educator Dave Tuff. Welcome to The Producer's Room. Welcome to this episode of The Producer's Room. I'm your host, Dave Tuff. Once again, we're coming to you from the historic House of David studios here on Music Row. I'm really excited about this episode and our guest, Tony Brown. But before we get into Tony's background, let's talk just a little bit about finding us on the internet. I wanted to encourage our audience to go check out our YouTube page and subscribe to it, as well as looking at our Facebook page and liking it. We have some email list signups and giveaways, and also if you sign up on our email list, we can inform you when we're putting out our next episode on YouTube if you want to keep up with us. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest for today. I'm really excited once again to have him. Our guest is Tony Brown, and if you haven't heard Tony's name, you probably should have, because when I think of a Nashville producer, I think of Tony Brown. Tony's career as a producer has yielded over 100 number one singles. I have to think about that for a minute. His record sales from his signings in A&R and his productions have exceeded the $100 million sales mark. A four-time Grammy Award winner, Tony has been the recipient of 4 ACM Producer of the Year awards, and he was also nominated for a Grammy as Producer of the Year in 1994, and that was the first time a country music producer had been nominated since 1979. Some of the numerous acts Tony's worked with include Tracy Byrd, Steve Earle, Vince Gill, the Mavericks, Reba, George Strait, and the list goes on and on and on. And also, right now, Tony just finished up a project with Cyndi Lauper, country record, and is working with Mo Pitney. In 2012, Tony produced one of the highest-grossing albums in country music, Tuskegee, which was a project with Lionel Richie, where he produced acts such as Blake Shelton, Jason Aldean, Darius Rucker, Tim McGraw, Jimmy Buffett, and Little Big Town. Not only is Tony a producer, he was also a label head. He ran MCA Records as president, MCA Nashville, and Universal South, back in the late 90s. And once again, Tony is also thought of the founding father of alternative Americana country. He had signed and or produced artists such as Rodney Crowell, Steve Earle, Lyle Lovett, and the list once again goes on and on and on. We might know Tony the best, however, from what he claims is his most famous role as Elvis's piano player in the late 70s. So without further ado, let's welcome Tony Brown. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Producer's Room. I am so excited for you to be here. We worked on getting a couple of dates, and you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you being here with us at the House of David.
Well, I'm honored you asked me. You know, you read all those credits, and for some reason, I still feel like I haven't made it yet.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. I mean, like I said, your name, when I think of Nashville producer or country music or Americana producer, I think Tony Brown. So.
I mean, I had never met Billy Sherrill, and about 5 years ago at the BMI Awards, he was getting a big honor. And I went over to his table, and his wife said, I said, "I'm Tony Brown." She says, "I know you are." And she said, "Honey, it's Tony Brown." And he just went, "Ah." But, you know, and so I was going, God, I would just be honored just to shake his hand, maybe get a little bit of that love from him, you know.
Oh, I think you got the magic definitely from down the line. But the interesting thing is, before we delve, in fact, I don't want to delve too much into the past, because I think a lot of people can find some of that on the internet. But I wanted to talk about the House of David studios here, because we're at the House of David, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about, you know, talking about continuing on the magic of your relationship with David Briggs here, the owner of the House of David studio. I know you guys go far back, and maybe you could speak to that.
Well, you know, I've been in the business for 30 years, and within those 30 years, there's probably 6 people that really were life-changing relationships, and David was one of those. Wow. He and I both played with Elvis. Then after Elvis passed away, Emmylou Harris called him to replace Glenn D. Harden with her band. And he said, "I'm not going to do it." I said, "I'll do it." And so he said, Tony Brown said he'll do it. He said, they've never heard of you.
Oh.
But anyway, I got that job.
Yeah.
And so then after I quit playing, I told David hired me to plug songs for his publishing company. And I said, man, you know what? I wish I could get a job at a record company. And he said, I'll help you do that. So he called Jerry Bradley, and I got a job at RCA.
Wow.
And then that became in 1978, that became my life-changing thing. Because I stayed at RCA for 3 years, went to MCA for 25 years, ended up being the president. Who would have ever thought? And then started Universal South. But David was that musician pal that he was so connected, you know, and he really wanted. He likes to help people. He's just one of those kind of guys.
Yeah,
you know? And he really helped me out. He changed my life. He really did.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so David had, as far as the Elvis gig came up, he had been playing with Elvis, and then you took the reins over from him, or was there someone in between?
Yeah, Elvis had a piano player named Glenn D. Hart, and he played the acoustic piano. And then Elvis added a second keyboard player to play the Fender Rhodes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it was Glenn D. and David Briggs. So when Glenn D. left Elvis to go with Emmylou, he quit the Elvis tour. I got the job to replace Glenn D. And of course, I already knew David before that anyway. But then after Elvis passed away, I started working with David, and just the connection with him got me the job with Emmylou, because Glenn D. left Emmylou to go with John Denver. That's the way it works. You get a better gig, you know.
Right.
And so
I was also reading on your bio that you started out, and I wanted to also mention before we get too far in, is that Tony has a new book, and we'll go back to this, but Elvis Strait, like George Strait, to Jesus, right?
Right.
And so look for that. And do you know when that's going to be out?
Probably late August.
So in your book, I'm sure you cover this, but it also said you started out doing some singing groups. So you were...
Well, actually, I was looking for a title for the book that had some good buzzwords in it to make you pick it up and go, what is this?
Yeah, I love that.
I don't care who this is, but what is this?
I love that.
And so my dad was an evangelist. I was raised in the church, and I only was around Southern gospel music. And everybody asked how I got the job with Elvis. It was because of that.
Right.
He loved Southern white gospel music.
Yeah.
And so I grew up there, and then transitioned.
So you were singing in church as well?
My dad was preaching, and I was playing and singing.
Yeah, okay.
And so he was an evangelist. And you know, when people say he was a minister, no, he was an evangelist, because we played at Pentecostal churches, Methodists, everywhere, you know, Salvation Army. And so my whole life was a church.
Wow.
And Elvis was, my dad called that worldly music. I couldn't even listen to anything but religious music.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't even know what Elvis's songs were till I met him, because I couldn't listen to them. I could only listen to choirs and quartets and stuff like that. But you know what? It sort of shaped my the soulfulness of coming from church. People call me and say, "Man, I can hear that gospel in you, man."
Yeah.
When I call your name, when I cut that record on Vince Gill, my first big hit with him, one of those quartet guys called me from Ohio and says, "Tony Brown, this is George Johnson, the Cathedral Quartet. I just heard that Vince Gill song. Brother, you sound like you're still in the church."
Oh man, well, it always stays with you. I told you a little bit before this that I didn't want to rehash a lot of the past. I wanted to talk about what you're working on now, and this show is about the creative process. So let's talk a little bit about, you just produced an album for Cyndi Lauper, which is pretty cool. Cyndi Lauper, Finding Her Way to Nashville.
Yes.
Now, was it a country record? Was it a...
Yes, you know, she's at the point in her life, actually where I'm at, you know. It's such a young man's world right now. Cyndi is not the go-to artist for CHR like Katy Perry or Andrea Grande. So she's got to do these concept records. And the last record she did was a blues record in Memphis about 5 years ago. So I heard she was coming to town to cut a cover record of 50s and 60s songs. And she was meeting with all the producers. And she had Seymour Stein with her, which I was more excited to meet Seymour Stein, you know. I mean, you know, Ahmet Ertegun and David Geffen and Clive Davis and Seymour Stein and Mo Austin. Those people.
And he's managing her, or
he's he runs Sire Records.
Okay.
I mean, Seymour Stein discovered Madonna, Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
And so we got together and talked about the songs she wanted to do, and went through all the Loretta Lynn, Kitty Wells, everything you can think of. I mean, hundreds of songs, and handpicked 12 songs to do. And so she met with every producer in town.
Wow.
And so she finally picked me. And so I said, why did you pick me? And then don't tell me it was because of Elvis.
Yeah.
She said, it was your hair. But anyway, so we really hit it off. And the thing I discovered about her, man, you know, she's a great singer.
That's what I've heard. I mean,
she is, you know. And
you hear the records and you
think
don't know.
about her character more than you do her voice.
Right.
I mean, you think about Whitney Houston, you think about the voice.
Right.
Barbra Streisand, but Cyndi Lauper. And then I started thinking about True Colors and Time After Time.
Yeah.
She's a great singer. Yeah. And so I had to be on my toes. There was no slacking going on with her, because she did not want you to like give your top game. You're right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Your
definitely.
A game.
Well, let's taking a step back. I think that's important because we're talking about the production process, which you've done probably, I don't know, 10,000 times in your life. Pick the band, pick the studio. But I want to go back a little bit about the casting process, because I think that's where you're such a genius in the players that you pick, the studios that you pick, how you pick the songs. So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. People say, you know, how do you make a great record?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you got to have songs.
Yeah.
Songs is the most important. And then the studio, when you cut a record, if you cut it all at once, like here in Nashville, most people do they start a record and finish a record. And like rock and roll, they cut over a year.
Right.
So you find a studio that has the right vibe. And Cyndi, we came to town, she wanted to cut at Sound Emporium. As T-Bone Burnett says, that's the best studio in the United States.
Juanita's over there.
Yeah,
so
I know. I never worked there very much.
So
we couldn't get in there, so we did the first session in Soundstage.
Oh, okay.
And then we found out that Sound Emporium became available.
Oh.
So we shut it down to Soundstage and went to Sound Emporium. And that was really important for her.
Yeah.
They have all those live echo chambers and those little plates over there. So the vibe is so important because you're sort of going to live there for like a month.
Well, I know you guys, don't you do a lot of George's records down
in Key West?
Yeah.
But that's the reason we do it down there is because of allergies.
Oh.
Nashville has terrible allergies. And George sometimes couldn't finish cutting the record because he would
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So we went down there to cut it. And it's a tiny studio in Key West, about like this, the House of David, not a big place.
Right.
And we had to back rider trucks up to put the amps in, you know, for the steel player and the guitar player. But it's all about the studio, and then the engineer is important. You know, not only I've got 3 go-to guys I call Chuck Ainlay, Steve Marcantonio.
Right. All those guys are great, man.
You know, and Justin Niebank. You got those guys, you know, that can give you what you want. They know you're dynamic. And then the players, casting the players is what I like doing most of all.
Man, you're so good at that.
Well, you know,
you look at George's records and you see Paul on there, and you see, I mean, just all those guys.
Well, you know, and the thing about it is, George never likes to change. I mean, he likes the same guys every time. And one time, Matt Rollins, he lives in L.A. He moved back here recently.
That's what I heard,
But he was in L.A. at the time, and his baby was due the week we were cutting in Key West, and he couldn't make it, so I had to replace him. And so I said, oh, by the way, Matt's not going to be here, George. His wife is expecting the baby any day. Yeah. He said, so he doesn't enjoy playing with me? I said, come on, George. The baby or George? I mean, the baby won. But so his comfort zone is the same players. With Cyndi, she wanted to use the A-team because the Wrecking Crew was a big thing out in L.A. The A-team was here. And I said, well, you know, a lot of those guys are dead, Cyndi.
Which A-team are you talking about? Like all the way back to Pig Robbins?
So let me get some of the new guys that have studied the A-team, or the guys that can give you what you want. Like, you know, in Nashville, the players have got to turn on a dime. Yeah. If you choke, they won't call you back.
Everybody's looking at you.
You better be good now, or I'll never call you again.
Right.
And so I put together, you know, Tom Bukovac and Dan Dugmore, Steve Nathan, Willie Weeks on bass, Chad Cromwell on drums.
I love Chad,
and Aubrey Haney on Mando and fiddle, and.
But how do you keep up with these guys? Are you just listening to all the records?
No, I listen to records.
That they're playing on.
I hate that on liner notes. You know, on iTunes, some records have the book, digital book.
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
But I want to know who played that solo, or who played, or who engineered, where it was cut, and all that kind of stuff. It just affects me. I want to know, you know. And so I love casting players for how good they are, like Tom Bukovac.
Right.
You know, I made a mistake of saying, and Cyndi, I got Tom Bukovac. He's the gunslinger in Nashville right now. And she says, I don't want a gunslinger.
I just want someone to play a little simple.
Well, I was just using that as an analogy, like he's really good. Yeah. He's really good. And so I learned that I couldn't be, I don't know her good enough to joke with her.
Right.
Because she thought I was screwing with her. Right. She said, this is not a boys club. Ooh. I said, I know it.
I love it. She's kind of schooling you as a producer.
But you know, and you know, the one thing about her that happened to me, I've never done, Jimmy Bowen changed my life too. David Briggs changed my life. He got me in the record business. But Jimmy Bowen trained me to be a producer, how you can do 5 projects at once. You got to be there for tracks. Mm-hmm. You got to be there to close a mix. Mm-hmm. But you can put a vocal together, and a second engineer can put it together and smooth it out. Yeah. But you don't have to be there for every second.
Yeah,
you know?
That's smart.
And so he trained me about all that stuff, how to time manage. Yeah. And the one thing about vocals, this is before Pro Tools. Yeah. You know, he'd say, as opposed to having the artist come back a week later and sing the songs, when you finish a track, send the band out of the room, do 4 or 5 vocals. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get it.
Get what you need.
Because they're in that zone.
Yeah.
And you can put one together from those 5 vocals 9 times out of 10. And he was right.
Well, let me ask you about, because that's important too. You're sitting there with the artist. How do you have any motivation techniques, any leadership? I mean, as far as to get a take out of someone, you know,
Well, you know, that's the thing about Cyndi. I'm leading up to this Cyndi experience because most artists, like Winona, she wants to do her vocals later. Okay. I know that, you know. Okay. Leanne Womack would say, I'm really going to try to get this on the track. I'm really going for it. So that meant, like, let's make sure her phones aren't too loud, so too much leakage and stuff like that. And then, but you know, Winona she was going to get it later. Not worry about that. Cyndi, the first song we did was End of the World, the Skeeter Davis tune.
Beautiful.
And it would just kill me. And she brought her engineer, Bill Whitman, who was the British guy that has worked on every record. Thank God she brought him. So she finished, and I said, Cyndi, you want to sing your vocals now, or do you want to do them next week? She said, I just sang it. I said, I know you just sang it. I mean, I heard you singing on the track. Right. She said, well, did it suck? I said, no, it didn't suck. She said, well, then it's done. And I said, okay. And then I realized what she was saying. I'm going for it on the track. And I want these guys.
But it takes a mature professional artist. I mean, and you're working with these types of artists.
You know, but not everybody, some people come in knowing what you can do with Pro Tools. And they know you can do it later. They just don't, they love the indecisive thing of, I can do it later. Right. She flew down here from New York. I need to get all this, you know. And the player, she said, okay, you guys, I'm getting mine. You better get yours. and it sort of put everybody
on the edge. I had to get it done. Well, how many takes? Like what for you is too many takes? I mean, in general,
never too many takes. Never,
and you get until you get the right one. But
you know, I always keep unless the take just falls apart. But if there's one verse in it that's, you know, with Pro Tools, I hate people that think Pro Tools screwed up the music. The devil or something. It's just the best tool because there may be one verse where everything was perfect. You can go, if you do a playlist, you can use it, you know? And it's just like, I remember the days when I first came to Nashville in '69, you know, the 40th take. Let's do it one more time, guys. And you do it the 40th time, and then you go back and listen, and you end up taking the third take.
Right.
It was just better.
Yeah.
You went, why did I miss that?
How did I go?
But you know what you're doing? You were just trying to get the best.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I think everybody sort of is. Every musician loves playlists on Pro Tools.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Playlists.
Oh yeah.
At last take I did great. Everybody else sucked, but I was great. Keep that. I said, no problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, modern technology has made things better, but it also has made indecision a really problem.
Yes.
I don't know what I think about that.
Right. Well, we're going to take a short break. I'm enjoying this so much, and we're going to come back with Tony here in just a second. Stay tuned.
What would a degree from Belmont University mean to you?
I'm so proud of you, darling.
Maybe it's time you found out.
Thanks, Dad. I can't believe I finally did it.
Belmont University Adult Degree Program. Finish what you started.
Welcome back to the Producer's Room. Once again, we're here with Tony Brown, and during the break, we were talking about the opportunity you got with Sonic Highways on HBO. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, well, that was really cool experience because the way I got on there, because I asked, how in the hell did I get this gig? You know, how'd they pick me?
Yeah.
Because they used Carrie Underwood and Willie and Emmy and everybody. My accountant was Carrie Underwood's accountant. And so they called them to get in touch with Carrie. My accountant, Gary Habers, suggested, well, why don't you use Tony if you're using a producer? Mm-hmm. It's that kind of like tag along, but hell, who gives a and so I got to do that, and it was so cool. And Dave Grohl is so, you know, they're the last big white rock band in America.
Yeah.
Really, rock and roll. And so he talked to me about, you know, how I came to Nashville and how that religious music fits in a parallel with country music. And so we talked for a couple hours, and then he said, okay, I hear you hate this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And I said, you're going to ask me an Elvis question.
Right.
He said, I am. I said, well, go ahead, because evidently that defines my career. Of all the things I've done, that seems to define my career. So whatever. He said, tell me an Elvis story. That's what they always say. So I told him an Elvis story. And, you know, of all the things I've done, I never really made big money there, but it was the first shot into, like, the big time. One guy said I hit the big time and bounced off.
Right.
But anyway, so, you know, I was more excited about being able to play in that band with David Briggs and Ronnie Tutt and Jerry Sheff and James Burton. And it was just like the opportunity to play with those guys made me feel like that I was as good as they were. As long as I didn't mess up.
Yeah.
But so that was really a cool thing for me. And it was a life-changing experience, because after that led to, you know, I replaced Glenn D. Harden.
Yeah.
And he left to go to Emmylou Harris. And then after Elvis passed, I got the shot to play with Emmylou. And then...
And were you even saying with the HBO thing, though, that everybody recognizes you now?
Oh,
right?
yeah, you know, so of all the things...
all over the world
Of
now.
all the things I've done, the Elvis gig defines my career, and then of all the things I've done, the most famous thing I've done is do the Sonic Highways thing. I mean, valet parkers, waiters, they'll go, you're that guy on Sonic Highways. They don't even know my name. They just know my hair. I had a big hair day that day. And I said, yeah, I was that guy. They said, that was cool what you said. And I went, yeah, I remember the night it was on HBO was during CMA week.
Oh, wow.
And so that next night, I went to BMI Awards, and I was sitting next to Florida Georgia Line, and in that HBO thing, I said, yeah, I'm so sick of all these acts saying, calling every girl's butt a sugar shaker. And then they flashed that Florida Georgia Line saying, slide that sugar shaker over here. And I was going, oh my God. I hope they didn't watch that show.
No, that's all right. They put two and two together. Okay, we have a segment called On the Record. And in this segment, we talk about some of your classic recordings. And, you know, I know we don't have a lot of time. I would love to just keep this going on and on. But I picked out two. I picked out Steve Earle, Copperhead Road, and Trisha's How Do I Live, the Con Air song.
Yes.
You can discuss either or both if you want to take the time. I just want you to kind of talk about maybe how you found the song, how you picked the band, just a little bit about maybe something that happened in the studio, about either or of those.
Well, I'll start with the Steve Earle because Steve Earle, I signed Steve when he left CBS.
Okay.
And then the first record I did was Guitar Town, which to me is the best record.
Yeah, that's the classic, yeah.
And then the third record, and the last record I did was Copperhead Road. We cut that in Memphis. And that band was all about Steve Earle and the Dukes. It was his band for the most part. And that song, I remember, you know, we would rehearse those songs at SIR before we cut them, as opposed to doing like session players do, learn it on the date.
Yeah.
And we were rehearsing for that album over at SIR, and he said, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about writing a song about all these guys coming back from Vietnam, and their dads used to make moonshine. So they're coming back from Vietnam, and they're going back to these places in the woods, and they're going to grow pot where their dad used to make moonshine." I said, "That's a cool idea, man." He said, "I'm going to call it Copperhead Road." And, you know, of all the things we did, that's the biggest hit he ever had. It was a big hit all around the world. And we were cutting it at Ardent in Memphis.
Oh, cool.
And
so his band was there.
The whole band. We cut everything live, you know.
Yeah.
And REM was in the other room at Ardent. So I felt like we were amongst icons, you know.
Yeah.
And then How Do I Live? You know, that was I was with MCA, and Kathy Nelson was the head of music supervisor for TV and film. And I was at the Troubadour with the Mavericks for showcase, and she came up to the show and said, "You're staying an extra day because Jerry Bruckheimer wants you to come to the studio tomorrow. There's a new movie called Con Air coming out." I said, "Yeah, I've heard about that." He said, "Well, Diane Warren wrote a song for LeAnn Rimes, and she cut it, and he doesn't like the way it turned out. So would you go meet with him?" I said, "Hell yeah, I mean, Jerry Bruckheimer, duh."
Yeah.
So I went over and met with Jerry Bruckheimer, and he played me the scene, and he had a Celine Dion song in there. And I don't care how uncool it is, I love Celine Dion. I think she's like, she is the queen. I just want to touch the hem of her garment. Yeah. So he played me this song, and I said, "Man, why don't you use that song?" He said, and that's before I realized what it cost to license a Celine Dion song.
Yeah.
You know, and so he said, "I want something like that, but you know, to get this song from Celine would cost so much money. My budget doesn't have it."
Right.
And there's a song that Diane Warren wrote for the movie that's perfect. I said, "Well, can I hear what was recorded so I know what not to do?" So he played me the LeAnn Rimes version, which, you know, as at the end, they both came out, and she had a #1 pop song, and we had a #1 country song. We won the Grammy.
Oh.
But so he plays me that. He says, it needs to sound like the Celine Dion song, plus I need 2 versions. There's one at the beginning of the film and one at the end of the film.
Okay.
And I said, "I know just the girl that can do it, Trisha Yearwood."
Yeah,
He said, "Okay."
Yeah.
So I came back to Ocean Way here, and we had to cut it like the next week.
Wow.
And we were using ISD inlines, firing it back and forth. And he loved it. And I got Ron Huff, Dan Huff's dad, to do the strings on it. And I made everybody said, "Listen to the Celine Dion song." I said, "Let's pretend I'm Ron Asanafis or David Foster and play like this."
Yeah.
And so we cut it both ways.
Yeah.
And it ended up being one of my favorite things I've ever done. I mean, the last version had Jim Horn playing that sax solo. You know, all that was like on the fly.
Wow.
That's what I love about national musicians, like Lionel Richie, and I did Joe Cocker's last album here. They know how good these guys are, but they get here and they go, "You know, I keep forgetting how good these guys are."
Yep.
They just walk in and just wail on one take, and it's like, "Oh my God, that's it."
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how that happened, and I loved cutting that record.
And I forgot you guys had won the Grammy for that one.
We did win the Grammy, and they were both up for Grammys.
Yeah.
And I heard that Leanne Rimes thought I was Satan.
Probably not too happy.
No,
right?
we're not very happy. But, you know, I just thought Leanne Rimes' version was good, but I thought Trisha's was better.
Yeah.
And not because of me, just because of Trisha.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a killer song.
Yeah. Okay, because I know we're about to wrap up. We got to get you to another meeting, but we have another segment, and this is where we get kind of wacky, okay? It's called Rapid Fire. And I ask you just some strange questions.
Okay.
So you can decline to answer any of these. At what age did you learn that Santa, or Santa Claus, wasn't real?
Oh,
Do I need
11.
11?
Yeah, I was
That's
living
pretty
in
late, man.
Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I believed in Santa Claus, but then my parents made the mistake. We were we were poor.
Yeah.
Had an outhouse. I mean, that's how poor we were. They had a guy dressed up like Santa Claus come to our house. He had a plastic mask on. And my brothers and my sister were pretending that it was really him, and I was going to myself, I didn't even say cuss words back then, but I was thinking, this is bullshit, man. That's a plastic mask. That's not even Santa Claus.
That's our neighbor.
But it wasn't even a letdown, you know, but you know, after that, I had 2 children, and I got a granddaughter now.
Oh, that's sweet.
You know, it's fun to make them believe.
Keep that going. Yeah.
But I never believed in the tooth fairy. But I did believe in Santa Claus until that happened.
Right.
They blew it.
They just went away. But they were the older brothers and sisters, or
well, I don't know if they were older brothers, younger sister.
Younger sister.
And I don't know what they thought.
Yeah.
But they're still in a time warp. I'm sort of like the one that came to Nashville.
Right.
And live in a secret world.
They still don't know what you do.
And they come here and they feel uncomfortable around my friends, so they didn't like me coming over there.
Right. I could see that.
And then I'm like Elvis around there. You know?
Okay, here's the next question.
Okay.
I told you we get wacky. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why? And you got to keep it clean. Maybe not see
If I could have one superpower is to have any girl I want be attracted to me.
Oh, I like that. Ooh.
Yeah, you know, it's like I've never been in. I can't understand why guys like call girls or escort services.
Right.
I want a girl to like me and think I'm cool.
Yeah.
Because you know, when I met Elvis, the first thing I thought was, man, if I looked as cool as he did, I could get anybody. Right. So I would like the power to have any girl, because what I like about girls is not big boobs or a big butt. Right. I like their voice. I like their eyes. It's really their presence. Yeah. You know, like for instance, Vince Gill is married to Amy Grant. Yeah. And I told Vince, I said, Vince, I hope you don't care, but man, I've had a crush on Amy for years. She's like, seems like to be the sweetest, most beautiful individual in the world. He says, she is.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, this is not too much more serious, but I think I want to throw this down because you never know what will happen with the universe. Name one artist you have not worked with, in country or otherwise, that you would still really like to produce.
Lady Antebellum.
Okay.
Because I love Hillary's voice, and I love Charles's voice, and I love their music. Yeah. And then if it was a pop act, it'd have to be Springsteen. Yeah. Well, hey, man. Because I really relate to him.
Throw it out there.
Steve Earle was kind of Springsteen-ish. Yeah. And in fact, Springsteen loved Steve Earle. I heard somebody said they walked by his car in the A&M studios, and he was blasting Copperhead Road on his cassette. I can see that. I could definitely. And when I met Springsteen with Joe Ely, it all came rushing out of my mouth like, hey, man, I heard Springsteen, man, Steve Earle, and I heard. Right. And he went, oh. Yeah, who are you, man? And so then I met him like a year later. Yeah. When he was at the Ryman doing the Ghost of Steve Joad, whatever. He was by himself, and I went to an after party, and I walked over to him and I said, hey, listen, I met you one time, and I made a fool of myself. He said, I remember you. Oh, man. I said, it's great to meet you, man. Oh. But he said, I remember you. Oh, man.
And then you show him your 4 Grammys, and he forgives you. Okay, I'm looking at our clock. We got just 2 or 3 more minutes, so we're gonna wrap it up. Man, like I said, we could keep this going on forever. I love it, but maybe if you could, because I know we have some students watching. Who's that guy? David Briggs in the house.
David Briggs.
Look on your phone when you get a minute. I sent you a picture of you on a motorcycle.
Oh my God! Did you really? Oh man! I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, well, you know, there were about 300, 400 people out there.
Yeah, but I never saw one. You know. But you know that.
One I've ever seen. We were at Graceland working on a documentary, and the guy from Denmark said, "Hey, I've got a picture of some of you guys. I think it's you. I can't tell." And I said, "Well, where?" He said, "You're on a motorcycle."
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
1976. I just sent it to your phone.
Well, you know that shot that Dave Grohl used on Sonic Highways.
Yeah.
I had seen a black and white of that, but it had like a logo, like owned by Elvis Presley Enterprises. It was all out of focus. When I saw that color version, I'd never seen that. You know, there's stuff that just shows up all the time.
Well, see, now this one's a little blurry because you know we were going pretty fast by the time. We got to the gate. So it's blurry, but you can tell it's Elvis. We can tell it's us. Somebody else might not.
We'll put a caption there. Maybe we can even throw it on the episode.
Photo editing somewhere that's better, like my old computer. You can get some of the blur.
Yeah.
You know, there was an Elvis Presley impersonator called Elvis Wade for years around town, and people used to say, "I heard you play with Elvis." I said, "Yeah, but it was Elvis Wade," and they went, "Oh man, really?" I said, "I'm kidding. It was really Elvis Presley." They wasn't as funny because they didn't know who Elvis Wade was.
Elvis Costello.
This guy who cut hair, he was part-time Elvis imitator from Berlin.
Okay, we're wrapping up. That's David Briggs. One of these days we're gonna have David Briggs at his own studio talk to us.
You want me to sing a little bit?
Yeah, you can play some piano in the background. We like it. Okay, before we wrap it up today with Tony, this has been fun. We're going to have to do it again, I know. But let's talk about, you just finished with Cyndi. What's the name of that record?
Detour.
Detour. So people can find that in stores. The name of your book, one more time, just go ahead and remind us.
Elvis Straight to Jesus. And straight as George Strait.
Yeah.
And that was to encompass all the parts of my life because I was raised in the church.
Yeah.
Then got a job with Elvis, which led to working in the record business and getting into country music. So I had to think of a title that would catch people's eye.
I love it.
Elvis Straight to Jesus. That's 3 good
And now,
names.
can we find that? Is that out in public now?
No, it will be out probably late August, 1st of September.
Okay, and you're working with Mo Pitney now,
Mo Pitney for Curve Records.
That'll be out.
They've had 2 singles, and I think the album's coming out this summer.
Awesome.
It's been 3 years since I finished that record, and I'm going, come on, guys.
Welcome to the record business.
I know. You know, everybody thinks if you get a record deal, you instantly become famous and rich.
Yeah.
It's not that way.
It's the start, right?
No, it's just like the first little piece of the puzzle.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
we
much.
got to wrap it up to get you your meeting.
And by the way, this guy's a good interviewer. There are bad interviewers and good interviewers, and he's a good one.
Thank you, guys. All right, well, thanks for watching us on The Producer's Room. We'll see you next episode.